topic right after this.
This is our discussion with the movers and the shakers of the culture, the people who've been legends, the people who've impacted what it is that we do, what it is that we listen to, and how it is that we move. Our guest today needs absolutely no introduction, but I'm still going to give the whole story. So if you watch the Charles Coleman podcast, you already know we have H-Town connections. We had Mayor Sylvester Turner on, and if you listen to the conversation, you heard him talk about how plugged in he was. You heard him talk about how he was plugged into the culture, because I asked him about, you know, the image of his city. I talked to him about the culture of his city. And of course, he talked about who he was connected to. One of the names he dropped was one of my favorite MCs. He was on my wish list to have on the podcast. And so I said, I need you to connect me with Bun. A couple weeks later, Mayor Turner kept his word. He's hanging out. He sends me a text. He's like, yo, I'm with Bun right now. Bun says, I'm coming to New York because I got a show to do. I said, I would love to have you on my show. And here we have the legendary Underground King, Mr. Trill himself, Chef Trill Burger himself, the OG of OGs. Bun B is in the building, ladies and gentlemen. Give him a huge round of applause. Super happy to have you, bro.
Happy to be here, bro.
Super happy to have you. Real talk. Thank you so much for coming through, man.
And let me just say before we start, that our mayor is connected.
All right.
In the city. You know, I know New York City has a very cool mayor.
He outside. I don't know. Cool. He's definitely outside.
Yeah. And so is our mayor, man. Like, there's very few things that really represent the city that he's not at. If he's not there, he's probably like out of town.
So I'm decided. Since we're here, how did that connection even start?
I've known him since he was a state representative. He used to be a U.S. Representative in the Texas House. And so I've known him since then because I'm fairly active in my community, as he is too. He's from Fifth Ward, which is a, very well-known Black community in Houston. And so, having been signed to Rap A Lot Records, having had friends in the Fifth Ward community, there's always been a very close proximity between myself and Mayor Turner. And when he decided to run for mayor, he reached out to me. I gave him my support. And ever since he's been mayor, he's given me support. We were allowed to actually throw a Trill Burgers pop-up on the lawn at City Hall to bring the city. I wanted to bring the city out. I wanted to make it a family event, and I wanted to do it somewhere that everyone knew where it was. Everyone would feel safe. The mayor and the police department secured the scene, made sure that everything was as it needed to be without being an imposing presence.
Yeah.
And shout out to our police chief, Troy Finner, another person who has always extended himself to our community. Very, very often we see tension between police departments and hip hop communities in this country. Houston doesn't exist in that way. Our police chief is Black. He's from Third Ward. He's from the city, homegrown guy. And he knows, he understands, and he knows he's outside, right? So in the realest way though, because he got to protect the city from all kinds of threats. But I just say that to say that Houston is, we different. We different. I could call them all, right? I could call any elected official in my city right now.
So let's talk about that, because I had actually wanted to get into this later in our conversation, but it just happened now. You're in Houston.
Yes.
You're, around a different, so as New Yorkers, gun culture.
Yes.
All right. So as New Yorkers, in terms of the city, open carry, we don't have none of that. Like, that's just not even, it's not even a thing, right?
How could you? It's too many people on top of each other. The surroundings and the environment are not conducive to open carry. And I live in Texas.
Right.
That's a lot to say.
That's what I'm saying. So, right. So talk to me about that, because you're in Texas. You're a Black man. You're in Texas. You've had things like Uvalde. You got, Governor Abbott being who he is in terms of just the dichotomy of state government, and those partisan politics. It's complicated.
Well,
so how does it shape out for you?
Well, just so we're clear from a state aspect, right? We do have a governor that is a little bit extra.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
But our lieutenant governor, right? That's a person who could be very toxic to our state and has been. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of those things where, there was always this notion that if you get rid of Trump, who really does not have any ideology, right? Doesn't really believe anything, right? Is whenever gets him to where he's trying to go, that's what he'll say. Whereas Mike Pence, his entire being is built on an ideology, right? So it's like, if you get rid of Trump, what do you get after that? Well, that's the same thing we deal with in Texas. If you do get rid of Greg Abbott, you're likely only to get Dan Patrick, and things would only get worse.
I had that conversation with a lot of people because I tried to explain to them, because Mike Pence had been a governor,
yes,
and because he actually had experience in governance, he understood how to make the machine work in a particular way and was intentional and would be intentional in a way that would be equally as dangerous, if not more dangerous than 45. And a lot of people, so they didn't understand that.
Well, I think that the issue with 45 was who's pulling the strings.
Right.
Right. That was the real thing. Like, where is he taking his cues from? You know what I'm saying? And if it's Breitbart, then it's problematic.
Absolutely.
Off top, right? That's off top. You know, Mike Pence takes his cues from hundreds, if not thousands of years of religious ignorance. You know what I'm saying? Inequality, sexism, racism, classism, you name it. All of that exists within Mike Pence's God system, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes total sense to me. It kind of like, it's wild because I had notes that I had done on what I wanted to have a conversation. We're like doing it in reverse, which is cool.
But we'll get there. I'm sure we'll get there.
Yeah. So I was asking about the gun thing because
So let's double.
I was asking about the gun thing because as Black people, a lot of our framing around the conversation about responsible firearm ownership or just gun ownership in general is really dictated by what our socialization is. So in New York City, our conversation about gun ownership really is framed around urban violence.
Okay.
In other places, other regions across the country, if you're socialized with guns in the home for hunting or just for protection or what have you, it's a different take. And so I always find it interesting when I talk to people who didn't grow up in New York or didn't grow up in DC or other places or Chicago and other places where like gun laws are extremely restrictive, what their take is, because a lot of us associate that with violence. And I try to get them out of that mindset, but it's difficult.
So for us in Texas, as a Texan, in regard to guns and gun law, the only issue with the gun comes up if you're already a felon or if you ride with weed. Like, that's the problem. You can have the gun. You cannot have the gun and the drug. That's the big problem. So when you get to our communities, that's where.
So technically you're not riding dirty until you got one or the other.
Right. If you got weed in the car, that's it. And that's not even an issue anymore, right? So you could legally possess up to, I want to say, 4 ounces of marijuana in Houston. And even if you're arrested for the possession, the DA will decline to prosecute. Yeah. The only issue with that is if you cross county lines. So let's say, for example, the majority of Houston exists in Harris County. I live in Brazoria County. So if I come into Harris County and I get pulled over with my gun, that's cool. But if I get caught with my weed, it's going to be like, I got to damn near say, I just bought this weed.
Yeah.
I just got this.
Just got no.
Yeah, I didn't bring it from home.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So there's nuances. But as far as the gun is concerned, the gun in Texas is just a part of life. It's an accessory at this point. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, no, I mean, we don't. Look, there are many people who are not comfortable with guns. Let's be very clear. There are a lot of people who are not comfortable with guns. But if you're in Houston, if you're a person of influence, if you're a person of means, you know what I'm saying? A gun is just a necessary addition to your lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? I had someone come into my home.
I was going to ask you.
You know what I'm saying? And, you know, I never would have wanted to shoot a black man. Let's just be very clear. That's something that I would never want on my conscience, and it still pains me to do that. But when you enter my home, then your color, your race, your religion, your gender, all of that shit goes out the window.
Facts.
When you come in against mine. And that's for me being my thing. Like, I've had other it's situations where I've had to deal with conflict with black men before, and I've never instigated one of these things. That's always been the issue. My gun has always been primarily for defense.
I appreciate that in particular about what you just said, because one of the things that I've always respected about you, about Pep, about how y'all move, and about how you still move, y'all was never, ever on some sucker shit. Never.
No,
Y'all was never on some sucker shit. But here's the thing. But even as y'all was never on some sucker shit, it was very clear, don't try it.
well, for us, it was always about trying to make sure that this microcosm that we existed in wasn't also a bubble. You know what I'm saying? So staying very true to our ideals, you know what I'm saying, our codes of honor, right? Without being too country, too, you know what I'm saying, too Southern, right? Like, yes, I have my Southern pride. I love where I'm from. I enjoy representing it. But I should make sure that these things don't box me out of other opportunities.
Did you ever, or have you ever looked at the game, especially, I mean, you've been in this since 92. You know what I'm saying? Like, you've been in this since 92.
Professional.
Professionally, right? But, you know, been in this since 92. So you've seen a lot. Have you ever looked at the trends that come and go where people have decided to jump on that and they sort of extra Southern it up, or they extra sort of like gimmick it up, or wherever they're from, or whatever it is they do? And have you ever been tempted? Because like I said, y'all never did that. Y'all never.
Yeah, no, because what we represented was never really about, look, we wanted to make money and we were going to make money, right? If the records didn't pay off, which they didn't for many years, we found other ways to make money, right? So there was never a need to clown ourselves in order to do that. But I don't knock anyone on the decisions they make, because they're the ones that have to live with themselves. You know what I'm saying? And that's why there were many opportunities where we could have gotten more exposure, right? But at the cost of something, right? At the cost of compromise. So that's why, if you notice, there are not a lot of UGK music videos.
Yeah, that's very.
And that's because the budgets were minuscule. They never wanted to really give us. And like, in my mind, UGK's first real music video is International Players Inc. That's the first time we had like a legitimate budget. We had a respectable director. And I'm not saying I haven't been on video sets.
Of course.
Right, obviously, you know. But no, this was the first time it was like, you know, this is what we want to do. This is the vision. And I'll be very honest, a lot of that had to do with the fact that Outkast was on the record. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They were more willing to do these things. Just the idea of Outkast even being on a record at that time was a huge deal. And so, you know, we would prefer to just be who we were in the space that we were in and figure it out from there, than have to present ourselves as a Southern version of something. You know what I'm saying? Or to the point where it's almost like creating a caricature of what a Southern rapper is, as opposed to just being a Southern rap, right? We could have been gimmicks that could have been applied in order to further the movement, but then the movement still, in my mind, would never have gotten as far as it did, because it would not have been genuine.
Right. Can you think of a time where like you was faced with that specifically?
Oh, absolutely. After Big Pimpin, you know, the record company called us and we were working on the follow-up album to Ride Dirty, Dirty Money.
Yep.
And the record company's like, so let's do this Big Pimpin' too. Because remember, Big Pimpin', which was the biggest record in the world that year, was still a Jay-Z record. So the record company was like, let's do it. Let's get another beat from Timbaland. Let's get a verse from Jay. Let's get hyped to do the video. Like, they're ready to commit to like 2.5 million at least.
Will Smith blockbuster
All at once.
record. Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, but if we don't get a Timbaland beat and we don't get a Jay-Z verse, can we still get a Hype Williams video? Right? Can we still go overseas and shoot something? Like, can we still get this superstar treatment? And of course, negotiations have nuances. So it was never no. It was like, why wouldn't you? Right? Why wouldn't you want to rap on a Timbaland beat with Jay-Z and have Hype Williams direct the video? And we were like, simply because that's not us. We didn't make the decision to rap to a Timberland beat. We were asked to rap to a Timberland beat. Jay-Z picked a Timberland beat. We weren't asked by Hype Williams if he could do our video. Jay-Z picked Hype Williams. We just got the residual benefits of being along for the ride.
Now, I know you've told the story before about how it was kind of, sketchy in terms of getting Pimp to do the video.
Oh, it was a deal breaker. Like, just the idea of him being on the song, it was a deal breaker because perception, and I always say, if you watch any other interviews or talk to me personally, I always talk about perception and proximity, right? Perception is very key in this world. And Pimp's reservations about not doing the song were because of the fact that the beat, if you look at the beat just from the beginning, the beat for Big Pimpin, something like that had never been done before, really hasn't been done again. It's a very, very unique musical creation.
The way it bounces.
Just where it's drawing from, right? You know what I'm saying? Not necessarily the same cultural cues that we normally have when we enter into creations from hip hop. But then on top of that, you got Jay-Z, who at the time's biggest rapper in the world, has a lot of momentum with him. And Pimp was just like, man, people that don't know us are going to think this is who we are. Yeah. They're going to think this is a part of our sound. Because you got to think, this wasn't Jay-Z's sound at the time. This was very different from what Jay-Z was doing.
Yeah, and it was definitely a departure.
Yes.
And that's part of why it worked.
Well, yeah, but Pimp was like, I was like, this is going to be a great opportunity. But Pimp's going to be like, what if they think this is our sound? What if they think this is our vibe? And then they come looking for us and that ain't what they find. You know what I'm saying? Like, they should know exactly who we are when they see us. And that's why when he did agree to do the record and he was like, okay, I'm going to rap on it. I'm only going to do 8 bars, right?
Right.
And I don't care what nobody doing or talk about. I'm finna do me on this. So nobody get me twisted.
Yeah.
He
did him.
You know what I'm saying?
And
that's the most memorable part of the song.
It really is, though.
And that goes back to being genuine and authentic, right? You cannot be your own perception of who you should be. You should just be, right? Because if you're not just being, then you have to rely on recall every conversation and every interaction, right? What did I say? How did I stand? What was my demeanor? Right? What was my vibe in that room? You have to constantly recall that type of stuff. And it's so hard to have to draw from the subconscious, like on cue,
You mentioned, and this was something that I just thought about. You talked about International Player Anthem being a huge record because Outkast.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. We made our contribution.
Of course. No. And I'm coming to that, right? Like, y'all got off. Not as would be expected, of course.
Yes.
One thing I know about you is you take a lot of pride in your pen. You take pride in your craft, and you should. And you're an MC who is secure in who you are as an MC, and you know what you can do with the English language.
Absolutely.
As you should. So you're on a record with Andre 3000, who is considered by a lot of people to be upper echelon that guy. You are upper echelon that guy MC. Was that any motivation to have your pen game even stronger, or were you just, do you think about that when you're on the record, whether it's Talib, whether it's Jay? Does that ever make you up your game, or you just kind of like, I'm just doing me regardless, period? I'm showed up as...
Well, yeah, in almost every other scenario, yes, that would be the case. But there's a different angle with International Players Anthem. So International Players Anthem was originally recorded with 3 6 Mafia. It's produced by 3 6 Mafia.
It is.
And so the original version was UGK and 3 6 Mafia. It was part of a group that we had formed called Underground Mafia. So we were about to collaborate at creating super glue.
A little bit crazy.
You know what I'm saying? So Pimp comes home from prison. And one of the albums that he was listening to significantly was the Project Pat Soul. And one of the songs Pat had was a song called I Choose You.
Of course.
Which is the exact beat that for rap is. And Pimp was like, that's a hit record. Y'all need to drop it again. Y'all need to do it again. In fact, we're not dropping that record again. Pat's already making music. And so Pimp was like, give me the beat. Give me the song, And so they were like, we could produce you any kind of beat. Like, no, that's a hit record. That's a big beat. So we record it. We get 3 6 Mafia on the record. 3 6 Mafia then, in a few months, go on to win the Oscar for Best Song for Hard Not Hit for a Pimp.
Yep.
Right? As with everything else, typically when you win an Oscar, your rates go up. So they assumed the same as well and went in to renegotiate their deal. Sony didn't feel that way about it, so they ended up shelving them as a recording group. So they would not clear 3 6 Mafia as rappers on the song at the time. Wow. But the song still went out as a sampler, or an album sampler, which I don't know if you're under 35, you probably wouldn't know what this is. Artists used to create a sampler of their albums, take like a 20, 30-second snippet of 4 or 5 hot songs and just give that away to people to get some
building a buzz, social media.
So our sampler was released All-Star Weekend. So obviously the promo team went hard in LA. Big Boy and Andre both get the sampler separately. Big Boy contacts me, hey man, I love this song. Are y'all done with the album? I want to get on the song. No, we'd love to have you on the song. Okay, but I just want to rap to the drums. I don't want to rap to the sound. I want to rap to the drums. Andre calls separately. No idea that Big Boy's called. Hey man, I love this record. I really want to rap to it. And I just rap to the sample. I don't want to rap to it.
Wow.
So that in itself, right, told me a lot about
their process.
Their process, right? And and if you listen to the record, Andre obviously raps over the sample. And when Big Boy comes in, it's only drums. Now we ended up adding music later, but a majority of his verse is rapping over the drums. And so my verse was already done when Andre got on the record. So there was no anticipation. But UGK and Outkast have recorded before.
Right.
On the Shaft soundtrack, a song called Tough Guy.
I remember that.
And I had to record that in Stankonia. So yeah, so to answer your initial question, but for a different song, abso-fucking-lutely. And consideration, it is not lost upon me how easy it is for Andre to do what he does from a lyrical standpoint, which is why he doesn't do it more often.
Yeah.
Because he would almost be, at this point, he would almost be phoning it in, right? Because he's just really so good at it that it doesn't necessarily present a challenge.
Wow.
So that's why people like Andre go off and learn the flute. People like Daniel Day-Lewis go off and learn how to be a shoe cobbler, right? Bun B goes off and does hamburgers,
Which leads me directly to my next thing. I am a hamburger connoisseur. Like, I love burgers.
1 out of every 3 people tell me this.
I'm sure they do.
It is the exact quote. I am a hamburger. I'm not a hamburger fiend. I'm not a lover. I am a connoisseur.
I go places. I go to cities. I want the best burger. If I got to fly to Houston to get a Trill Burger, I'm going. Because I saw the Tyler video.
Yes.
Where Tyler did and first of all, I mean, I appreciated the fact that you let people have the burgers the way that they want. Like, not, you know what I'm saying? He was like, pickle first, and that's cool. So I actually like pickles and onions.
Yes.
On burgers, so I'm good. I just don't like cheese. That's my thing.
Well, I don't like onions or pickles either, right? Okay. I have a natural aversion to onions just based on texture. But I ask everyone to try it
as is. Yeah, I get it.
You know what I'm saying? But some people just know, if I have to eat it with that, I'm not going to eat.
So talk to me about the Trill Burger. First of all, what was your response? I'm not Tyler, so I have my own way that I want to try it. Yeah. I want to try it as is. Talk to me about how you got into that space, where it came from, and because you've always done other stuff. You've always, whether it's the coloring book, an activity book, whether it's teaching, as a professor, right? You've always done other stuff. But now you're doing Trill Burger. So talk to me about how that even got moved.
But this is all these things you're talking about. This is all about being open to collaboration. Right. So a friend of mine approached me. I'd known him previously through the clothing industry. He had a brand called emcee. And then he transitioned into the food industry and became very successful. in the food industry, and had recently bought into a brand in Houston that I was a big fan of. I love their food. And he was looking at trends. He's very good at like trying to catch food trends and whatnot. And so he saw the smash burger trend getting a lot of traction in LA and was slowly starting to beast, as all trends do.
Yeah.
It used to be the poke bowl, right? All of a sudden, poke bowls is everywhere. Last year it was hot chicken.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? They start saying hot chicken places, lots of pop up everywhere. Right now it's smash burger, right? And so in his mind, the trend had gotten all the way to Oklahoma. And so he was like, if I don't catch this trend by Texas,
I'm gonna miss it.
It's gone. They put a lot of research into the creation of the burger, and we're really excited about their opportunity. And so a mutual friend of ours, Nick Skirfield, said, hey, Bun's been looking to do some stuff with food for a while. Maybe you should contact him. So he set up a meeting between us. I tried the burger, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Did it have the Trill sauce on it when you tried?
Absolutely. The burger was probably 92% of what it is now. It was really good. But when we did a little bit more R&D, they tweaked it a little bit and they brought it back. And not only, it was already the first time I ate it, the best burger I'd ever had.
Really?
But when I ate it the second time, it was one of the best dining experiences I had ever had. Because this burger is calculated.
I like that.
This burger is calculated. This is not somebody in the backyard cooking a burger whose brother-in-law and cousins kept telling him, you should do something with. No. This was created by a Cordon Bleu trained chef.
Oh, all right.
Who wanted to create a handheld umami experience, do burgers, and did it. He really actually created a hamburger that has the salty, the sour, the savory, the bitter. It has all these different taste elements that when you combine them, create what the Japanese refer to as umami. What Black people would be like when you eat really good mac and cheese. You know what I'm saying?
Love it.
That feeling.
I love it. I'm coming to your town. I need a Trill Burger, extra sauce.
I'd love to bring it to your town.
That was my question is, what's the play around expansion? Because if I can get one here, I'm even happy.
Honestly, slowly but surely, right? I do plan on at some point having a Trill Burger establishment in every major metropolitan city and conceivably around in the smaller suburban areas. But scale is a very tricky thing, scaling up a brand. And to be honest, this is a cultural brand. It's built on the culture of Trill, which is a Texas term that was eventually accepted nationwide and worldwide. But again, when I talk about proximity, right? Let's say that, Houston is the heartbeat, right? Or Houston is where the radar is telling you it's emanating from, right? And so that's where it's the strongest.
Okay.
And so as we expand, it doesn't resonate everywhere as it does at that original point. So for us as a brand, we're looking to maximize Texas as much as possible.
Makes sense.
From a brick and mortar aspect, I have Dallas, I have Austin.
How many Texas stores do you have now? How many franchises?
Well, right now we only have one brick and mortar that by the time this podcast releases should be open. But we're also in the soccer stadium, Shell Energy. We're in the NFL stadium, Reliant, NRG. And we are also moving into the basketball stadium, Toyota Center.